Welcome to this week's episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My guest this week is Nick Fewings of Ngagement Works, and author of Team Lead Succeed. This is a subject matter podcast where we talk about team effectiveness and teamwork. Nick is a leading expert on those subjects, and we are going to have an in-depth conversation with him about the factors and contributions and things you need to do to really make a team work. I hope you really enjoy this episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. And if so, help us by subscribing and following the podcast. And we hope that you'll also go to evolveadvisory.co.uk and find out a bit more about Evolve. But for now, let's get on with the show. Welcome, Nick, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you very much.
We've known each other some time. We probably met nearly 20 years ago, I reckon, which is a bit scary.
And we still had the same amount of hair.
Yeah, I was going to say, neither of us had any more hair than we do now.
20 years.
But we've lost contact a bit, but we've reconnected. Your daughter was listening to the podcast and said, Dad, get in touch with everyone, you need to be on the podcast. So here you are. So we're going to talk during the course of our conversation about everything to do with teamwork and team effectiveness. That's the focus of this conversation. And you call yourself, I'm going to look at this down on my cards, a teamworkologist.
Yes.
Okay. When did you first realise that team dynamics and making teams work was going to be your life's work, Nick?
It goes back to 1992.
Okay.
When I worked quite close to here in the Barclays finance.
Okay.
And I was a technical expert. So I'd exceeded contract year on year. I was great at managing myself. And I'd also taken my project management exams during that time. And then one day, a manager came and said, look, you've gone as far as you can go as a technical expert. We've got a project that needs undertaking. We're going to put together a team of 10. You're going to lead it. Yeah. Away you go. And I said, fantastic. So it was my first leadership role.
Yeah, management
so I was
leadership
excited.
role. Yeah. In at the deep end.
And I said, so training on leadership, training on teamwork. And the guy said, no, you've got 2 weeks to hand over your job and then 2 weeks to get into the new one. Failed completely. And I feel sorry for the team.
Because you were sort of that accidental manager at that point.
Exactly, yeah. So I destroyed the team with my ineptitude at leading them. Blew the budget. Yeah. The project took 2 years instead of 12 months. Lots of errors along the way. And it was quite a dark time for me.
Can you imagine?
And that's what sparked my passion. Because I thought, I don't want any other leader or team to go through the heartache and trauma that I'd been through. So I started trying to understand what makes teams high performing. Okay. So that's where that
was really stemmed from. So that point of failure in a way.
Failure.
Doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Seeing the consequences and thinking, I can do this better.
Yeah.
I can be
Well, there
better.
needs to be a better way. And the fact that businesses weren't supporting their leaders or their teams. Yeah. Quite often I still hear it today, businesses say, our people are our greatest asset. But quite often they don't look after those people. They don't develop and nurture them. They don't give them the tools to help them succeed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it is about that, I suppose the dysfunctional nature of a lot of teams isn't just about the leader though, is it?
No.
At what point did you realise perhaps, I don't know, maybe during the course of your journey that actually you need to train the leader to manage people better, but you've got to get the inner dynamics of the team right? Yeah,
I mean, there's two parts to it. I always see that a leader is part of a team, albeit that they've got ultimate accountability. But I always say also each member of the team has a voice. They're working together. So if things are not going great, then they should have the ability to actually raise those issues. Yeah. So you've got to create that psychological safety within that team to enable that to happen. Definitely. And the frightening thing is, stats that have come out over the last 30 years, but even quite recently, state that there's only 10% of teams that are high performing.
Wow.
They reckon about 50% are average, and frighteningly 40% are dysfunctional.
And how would you define dysfunctional then? You know, because that's a stat, and it probably, if I look back on experience and you look out there in the outside world, and I could believe that stat, and it's a scary stat, but I could believe it.
Yeah.
But how would you define a dysfunction? Before we come on to what factors maybe that make a high-performing team, what makes a dysfunctional team, Nick?
Dysfunctional, poor feedback. You know, you can pick up the signals from poor feedback based on customers, the service or the products that are delivered, lots of errors. Within the team themselves, it will be backstabbing, talking about people behind their back, not collaborating. So, you know, people saying, oh, I've got this knowledge, I've got the experience, however, I'm keeping it to myself. Yeah. So they put this cloak around themselves.
That's because of a lack of trust in the team.
Lack of trust, exactly. You know, people that may see their colleagues struggling and, well, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out the door. So it's that lack of commitment to help each other. And a lot of this dysfunction I've found stems from actually people not understanding what the team exists to do.
Yeah. So they haven't got that purpose. They haven't got that North Star.
Exactly.
Place.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And that's where I start when I work with teams. And that's the start of the book is make sure you've got your team purpose statement, which is basically, it's quite simple.
Yeah. What
do we exist to do as a team? What does that enable? And then what are the benefits?
And that's really, I assume you would say that's that distinction between leadership and management of a team, isn't it? Leadership is setting the North Star.
Yeah.
Management is dealing with the day-to-day.
Yes.
And you've got to get the balance of both things right.
Strategic versus operational.
Yeah.
So, and you know, it's the word leadership actually comes from Old English. So it is to guide people. Whereas the word management, that comes from Latin manus, which is hand. So manager is hands-on.
Okay.
So it's the operational side. Unfortunately, again, the distinction between the two over the years becomes quite blurred. And, you know, there's some managers that think they're leaders, you know, vice versa.
But you do need, I don't know, maybe there's a differing opinion on this then. I always say you've got to have the leader.
Yeah.
You've got to have the person taking responsibility, setting the North Star. But you need leaders throughout the team, don't you?
Yeah.
That show leadership.
Yes.
And hold people to account.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. And in terms of accountability, again, the teams that I've seen perform extremely well, they're the teams that hold each other accountable. So they've got that psychological safety around trust and understanding each other to be able to call people out. Yeah. Not in a nasty way, but just to hold them accountable. And if there are issues, then to rally round, say, so how can we support you to make sure these things don't happen again? So I think within us all, we're all leaders, but I think we've got to understand sometimes those boundaries and the differences between leadership and management to make sure that those boundaries don't get blurred. Yeah. And therefore we know and understand our role, our responsibilities, and our accountability.
Definitely. And within the book, you touch on 16 kind of key areas to get a team highly functional and to be effective. And I just want to delve into a few of those now. And the first one actually is what you've just been talking about, which is that psychological safety and trust point.
Yeah.
How do teams really build high levels of trust amongst themselves? And how do you get that feeling of everybody feeling psychologically safe in a team? Because it's something that's easily said, but hard to do and deliver at times. Yeah. So what are some tips that you would say to establish that feeling of trust and psychological safety in a team, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the key thing is finding out about that person, valuing and appreciating that individual. You know, we do it in our daily lives where we build relationships with family and friends. So sometimes I've seen it. It's as though we walk through the door of an office or a building and we forget to do those things.
Yeah.
And I'd say there's two types of trust. There's operational trust. So you start to build trust with people that they will change their passwords on a regular basis, that they will comply with health and safety, that they will log their overtime, that, you know, they won't disappear at 3 o'clock when their shift finishes at 6. So that is operational trust, which is important.
Yeah.
The real one that makes a difference is appreciative trust. So it's appreciating a person for who they are, their values, their beliefs, their background, their religious beliefs, their sexual beliefs. It's the whole package of that individual. And one of the things, the easiest things to do is, and I do it on quite a regular basis, is it's quite simple. Sometimes I get teams to say, okay, share a story, share a song that is the story to your life.
Okay, that's quite deep.
Which is, it can be quite deep.
Yeah.
It can be quite emotional when teams share this stuff. Also, I get people to draw their journey of life just on a piece of paper.
Okay.
You can have as much information in there or as little as you like to share that you're comfortable sharing.
Okay.
And again, some of the stories that come out are really fascinating.
I love that as a workshop exercise. It takes people out of the mind and brings that creativity, doesn't it? Right side, left side brain, kind of thing. And I've got a question for you then, because I understand all of that, and I think generally, hopefully, people that I've led and managed will say that I do care about them and I do, want to show interest in them. But I know one of my flaws is that when I'm frantic, when I'm busy, my behavior changes. And I agree with you, getting to know your team and caring about them and showing trust and making them feel psychologically safe is important. But a lot of us may be, and I'll be honest with myself, that when I'm under pressure or when I'm feeling frantic, that dial comes off a little bit because it's just, right, let's get the job done.
Yeah.
How do I overcome that, Nick?
I think one of the things, it is a challenge for all of us. And I wouldn't say it's a flaw. I would say it's a challenge. We've all got these challenges within ourselves that when we dial up the stress, there's a number of levels of stress. So usually behaviorally, we go from what I call good day, then we go into bad day. And then psychologically, what is quite fascinating is that as a pressure release valve, when stress is really, really high, we flip behaviorally to our least used behavioral self. So certainly for me, I'm very outward going and optimistic and fun loving. When the stress is put up a few notches with myself, I go within myself.
Okay.
So rather than being extroverted, I go introverted. And I become quite nitpicking, quite questioning, but quite often it comes out in a childish way because I'm not used to using that behavioral style. Yeah. And I think the key thing is recognition. I think that's the starting point, recognizing what are the triggers. Because once you understand those triggers, we can subconsciously start to build strategies to stop ourselves going into that spiral.
I used to talk about Inspire, that we needed to be Inspire on a good day every day. That's at an organisation level. So that really relates to me, like the good day and the bad day. But actually, if we think ourselves as managers and leaders, what are we like on a good day and how do we make that more consistent?
Yes,
I suppose, because we're human, aren't we? So
I know
it's going to fluctuate.
And it's fascinating how easily we pick this up subconsciously with other people. And I always say to people, if you see one of your colleagues acting, behaving out of character, the best thing to do is go up and say, is everything okay? Are you really okay? Is there any help I can give you? Because we pick it up. If we work with people over a period of time, we know when they're out of character.
Yeah, we just should show care, show interest.
Show care, show interest.
And don't let it slip.
Yeah. And that's one of the things with leaders that I've found. There's a leadership style. I've coined a phrase. I call it M-stratic leadership.
M-stratic,
which is a combination of empathy and strategy.
Okay.
So the strategy is doing right for the business. The empathy is doing right for your people.
Okay.
And all the studies I've done and the teams that I've worked with and the organizations over many years that I've worked with, those leaders that are loved by all their staff have this quality of M-stratic leadership.
Yeah.
So doing right for the business, but also doing right for their people.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's okay until the two things are misaligned, aren't they? And where does that leave the leader? Yes,
I mean when they're misaligned, too much strategy.
Yeah.
Quite often you don't take the team with you.
Yeah.
Because it's fast paced. Yeah. We've got these goals to achieve.
Come on, we're off.
We're off, and you look behind you and you think, where are they? Yeah. Then on the flip side, being M-stratic, too much empathy. You won't get things done.
No.
So you'll be trying to deal with the well-being of your staff too much.
Yeah.
So giving them too much of a comfort blanket. And it is difficult finding that balance between the two.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
It's like riding a bike. You've just got to keep practicing.
Definitely. Well, we hopefully all get better as leaders as we
go on,
and managers as we go on.
Yeah,
it's not always the case, but yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about having a North Star, and another subject I want to pick up with you is this sense around a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And maybe what's the difference between sort of having a stated mission, vision, and values, and having a true sense of purpose at the core? Is there a difference in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think when organizations and businesses give these down from high above and say, this is our mission, this is our vision, our purpose, etc., quite often it doesn't land. So I work with a lot of large organizations where they've got these statements, purpose, vision, mission. They have values and behaviors that sit underneath it. But I found quite often they don't resonate with team members, individuals. So I always try and like to work bottom up when I work with teams to get them to create something that they can own.
Yeah.
Because ownership means that they will live it and breathe it. So I get the whole team involved. When I mentioned about creating a team purpose statement, get everybody in the team involved, get them signed up, get their thoughts and ideas. And then it may be slightly different to the overall organization or business, but it works. And that means that then individuals, in terms of their jobs, you can get them to start thinking about, well, what's the value that I add? Why am I here?
Yeah, do I make?
Yeah. So I think that it works on two levels, because as individuals, we want to make a difference.
Definitely.
So that's important.
And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Is that piece around, your individual values and the values of the organization and the need for those to be aligned? I assume you're a believer, and this is why I say I think it's a question I know the answer to. There's got to be alignment. And if there's not alignment, then you've kind of got to opt out and go and find an organisation or a place to work that does align with you.
Yeah. We tend to gravitate towards organisations and jobs that meet our behavioural needs and also meet our value sets. So mine is very much around trust, openness, honesty. So if I have clients where I don't align with them, I will walk away. Yeah.
Okay, and let's spin that on its head then. So you're the manager or leader of a team. You have 80% of your people whose values align with that, the organisation, and you. 20% don't. What should they do?
Initially, it would be coaching. Sitting down with that individual, finding out where the pinch points are, where those differences are.
Okay, and just be open dialogue in that
open dialogue, and can that gap be bridged? If not, then considering what are the options? Because ultimately we spend the majority of our lives working. So we want to feel happy.
Yeah.
We want to enjoy what we do. So I think sometimes you've got to have those conversations to get people thinking.
Definitely.
You know, am I in the right job? Am I in the right organisation?
Yeah, because sometimes if it's wrong for the organisation, it's wrong for the individual, and nobody's happy. And actually, moving somebody through and on into a new place for them where they are happy is the best thing.
Yeah.
And somebody reminded me the other day, Martin Edwards, CEO of Julius House, that Clive Woodward, you know, when he was managing the Rugby World Cup team, said he couldn't have a sapper in the team. He couldn't have anybody that drained the energy of the team. Yeah. And sappers had to be coached, managed, or exited. And that's exactly what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, if I'm right, it's Stephen Covey in his book says, he had a book From Good to Great, and he says, get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus. Which some people would say, oh, that's a bit harsh. But I think ultimately it rings true. Yeah. You can't have those, as Clive Woodward said, sappers.
But as I said just now, I think inevitably, having had to make some of those hard choices, I suppose, on behalf of the organisation or for the people, is it usually works out best for all, doesn't it? Yeah. In truth.
Yeah. It's surprising how many individuals I've seen in that situation. It opens up a new opportunity for them.
Definitely.
Because they suddenly think, what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
What fills me with passion each morning? What motivates me? And what aligns with my skill sets that I've got, but also my behavioural personality.
Yeah.
And you get those aligned and it becomes a joy. Work becomes a joy.
One of the most powerful things we offer at Evolve is our peer groups. We bring business leaders together in a trusted environment to share challenges, experiences, and ideas. It's not just about the networking, it's the quarterly peer groups, the development workshops, the one-to-one coaching, and of course, the social events. So if you'd like to be surrounded by like-minded individuals and learn and share from them, then please do contact us and come to one of our peer group sessions. And we've touched already again on kind of communication. So I suppose, how do teams create the right time and the right space for those candid, honest conversations? Because, you know, communication is, if you do any staff survey or team survey, communication can be improved. We'll be in the top 3, if not the top 1 every single time. Yeah. And it never feels like you can truly nail communication. So hints and tips, Nick, on how you can encourage candid and honest conversation in a team.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the first things I learned when I, started going on this journey of understanding high performance teamwork, first of all, you need to know who's in your team. And that's important from a communication perspective. The reason being, we're all different, we're all unique, and therefore we have different communication styles, but also different communication needs. Equally important for leaders to understand that, as well as team members. And I probably 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, if I'm working with a team, I will go down a behavioral psychology route so that people get personality profiles, which the majority of them will say, this is communication that works for me, and this is communication that doesn't. And simply then, as a team, you can create an aid memoir so that when I'm talking to Warren, I know to do these things.
Yeah, be direct, be brief.
And don't waffle or hesitate, or talk too much about the people aspects. We're talking about strategy. So I get to understand your needs, and equally, you should start to understand my needs.
Agreed. Yeah.
And therefore, we can build a relationship where our needs are met. And again, that builds that psychological safety, which builds trust, etc., etc. And sometimes it can be simple things that we don't talk about that irritates us. So I think we've got to find time. And I always say to teams, you should be spending 15 minutes on a regular basis with different members of your team. It's not just the leader, team members, to say, Warren, should we grab a cup of coffee? Let's just chat about our relationship.
Yeah.
What's working for us, so we can give each other a bit of praise and thanks, because quite often we don't do that.
Don't. We're just in the day-to-day head down.
You know, it could be, I really appreciate the fact that you put the attachment on the email to give me some more information. So really appreciate that. But also, we should be having those conversations. Is there anything we can do to actually make our relationship even better? And in doing that, that relationship should develop and grow.
So you'd say that communication thing, in summary, stems from getting to the point where we can understand each other better.
Yeah.
And then modifying our behaviour accordingly.
Exactly, yeah.
And what about the drumbeat of, what's your view on, that old, I think it's probably old hat now, but the state of the nation, the quarterly updates, because a part of a team is, okay, we've got this purpose, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we get on day to day.
Yeah.
But, as a leader, so if we talk about, this podcast and business leaders and owners listening to it, how should they in this day and age be communicating progress, updates with their team? Have you got any sort of thoughts around that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing for me, face-to-face is the best.
Yeah.
But I know in the world in which we work with, hybrid and, global teams, often we've got to do it via conference calls, etc. The key thing for me is regularity.
Okay.
And regularity of those updates, but also carving out time not just to talk about budgets and deadlines and deliverables and products, etc., but carving out time to talk about us as individuals, to talk about us as people. And there's not a lot of teams that actually do that. So I think about the focus of these updates. Do you have operational updates? But then we should be having updates from a team perspective, talking about people, because ultimately people matter most. It's nothing will get done if you don't look after your people.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I reflect, it's part of my personality, I suppose, on you expect that a lot of teams are led by somebody who's very driven and direct, and it's probably true that inevitably they are. But when I reflect on some of the clients I've worked with and some of the businesses and other organisations, some of the best teams have been led by somebody that's very empathetic, and very caring, because they've got the best out of their people, because they have spent that time getting to know them. Their communication style is softer. It's not the rah-rah. It's not, let's go, right, that's the next hurdle. They do look back and they celebrate their successes. It's interesting.
Although, as we've just talked about, you can't take that too far.
Yeah.
Because else you give them that warm comfort blanket, and, sometimes we need to dial it up.
Yeah, sometimes it's not good enough.
We need to hit the deadlines, the targets and the deliverables. So it goes back to that balance of strategic leadership, is getting that tightrope walk, that fine balance between doing both.
It's interesting, because so there is a challenge there, isn't it? Because it is a tightrope, and I agree with that. But it's how do you become consistent at it? I suppose that comes back to that under pressure thing again. It's consistent leadership and management to make a team work is really important, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you've got to be aware of yourself, understand yourself, then understand others. And where's the difference between those? Yeah. I work with a large organisation from Basingstoke. They print money and also do the New York driving licence, and they used to do the passport. They probably, I don't know whether they do now, whether it's coming back into their phone. But I worked with a really great leader who his style was very empathetic, And I saw him on stage at their annual conference. He had a directorate of 200 people.
Right.
He was incredible because he knew himself, he knew his style, but he knew that the people in his audience, his team, ultimately his directorate, were different. And at the coffee break, I had the opportunity to just chat with some of the staff after he'd done his 1-hour conference talk. And I just asked them what they thought about him. They said, best leader ever. And all of them, I said, why? They said, because he communicates in a way that meets our needs. Yeah. And all he did in 1 hour was he went through the different behavioral styles. He started off with strategic, saying we're going to go into these countries with these services. We will deliver success.
Yeah.
And he said, it's going to be exciting. He says, we're going to work with different people, different clients, create new projects, come up with new ideas. Mindful that you're going to have to learn new skills. We will make sure that you are supported to develop and grow as individuals. And then he said, and if we get all this right, and on the screen, there was the plan with the budgets, the data, the facts.
You just got
he just went,
colour,
he just
colour
went
works, colour circles,
and that's why they loved him.
Yeah,
and he had that ability he'd learned over the years to be able to do that.
Brilliant. That's a great example.
Yeah, another one who's incredible at doing that, Barack Obama.
Yeah,
a very similar ilk.
Okay.
That if you look at any of his speeches,
yeah,
he ticks all those boxes off.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. And we've talked about accountability a little bit, but I'm intrigued to understand that, you know, we've said accountability within the team is really important to make it effective. But how do you really embed accountability within the team so that it's not just top-down driven accountability?
Yeah.
You know, have you got some examples or again some hints and tips on how you really embed accountability in a team?
Yeah, I think first of all it starts with understanding. Individuals understanding, what am I accountable for? You know, and again, there's a difference between being responsible for something and being accountable. And again, I think in some businesses there's blurred lines there. So it's understanding, you know, what do I need to make sure happens and the book stops with me.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be some sort of sign off to that from the leader and the individual. They need to have that recognition. This is ultimately what you are accountable for as an individual. And I think then once you've got that in place, it's sharing that information, sharing it with the team. You know, Jane is accountable for X, Y, and Z. Fred is accountable for A, B, and C. So that the team as overall knows who's accountable for what.
Yeah.
Because there's a great poem from years ago where nothing gets done because of who and why and wherefore. I think it's Rudyard Kipling.
Okay.
I think, and basically, nobody's holding each other accountable, and therefore nothing gets done.
But that's about being open as well, isn't it? Because you think about teams that have been dysfunctional, sometimes those conversations take place, but they'll say, well, I'll tell you this is what you're going to do, and this is what I want you to do. But it doesn't get the next bit, that communication doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it becomes a bit political and it becomes a bit secret squirrel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that openness kills a team. And that lack of openness kills a team.
Oh, totally. Totally. And it's, you just sparked it with accountability. I don't know if you remember back in I think they become prevalent in the 80s, but the 90s there was a big boom in them. And they called them successories.
Okay.
In offices, you saw them everywhere, these motivational posters. They were on mugs, they were on mouse mats, they were plastered everywhere. And everybody got sick and tired of them. You know, they didn't motivate, they didn't inspire, they turned people off.
Yeah.
I've gone the other way. I've created ones that look at the dark side of teamwork if you don't manage accountability, and I've got a great image of somebody pointing the finger at somebody else, and I've put underneath accountability, the greatest opportunity to mask your inabilities by pointing the finger at somebody else, and that's what some teams do.
They do, definitely.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's 16 kind of these attributes. We've touched on 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And a few others during the course. So
they fall into four what I call categories. So there's 4 in strategy.
Yeah.
There's 4 in structure,
okay,
which is the structure that you have to have in place to help you succeed. Then there's cooperation, which is how we collaborate and share our knowledge and skills, and communications in that. And then there's engagement. Okay. How engaged are the teams? So those 4 categories, ultimately you've got 2 that are more strategic and 2 that are more people
operational,
focused.
Tactical, people focused.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your views on how you can actually measure the effectiveness of a team? And there's a lot of those engagement type surveys out there.
Yeah.
Are you a believer in those, or is the effectiveness of a team just the results that it delivers?
Am I a believer? I hope so. Engagement surveys, I think they have a different purpose because they tend to be organisational, and it's are you happy with your salary? Are you happy with your gym membership?
They're broader.
They're broader, and quite often they're there to satisfy shareholders that the business is doing the right thing.
It's on track.
Once I've always been inquisitive. So once I'd understood who's in a team behaviourally, there was still something missing, which was how effectively do we work together? Yeah. That's when I came up with this model with the 16 elements. Under those 16 elements sits what I call catalytic questions. So there is a report that teams can produce off the back of it. So it's an anonymous questionnaire, but it's all related to teamwork. So, for instance, one of the 16 elements is team meetings. Okay. The catalytic question that's in there is, are team meetings start and end on time? And you can score it. Yes, they do. No, they don't. Or in the middle. Sometimes they do. So you get a report, which is the team holding up a mirror to itself. What that enables you to do is celebrate what's working well in the team, but then have conversations about your challenges.
Back to those honest conversations.
So the teams that use it invariably will use it as a benchmark to see whether they're developing as a team, whether they're average, whether they're good, or whether they're high performing. So there's 4 levels that they can fall into. The key thing is then they've got loads of data to, as I said, celebrate what's working well, but equally dig into some of their challenges. And the idea is then you agree as a team what the solution is, a practical solution, because the best facilitator of teamwork is the team themselves. Because they know what's going on. So they can implement solutions, and then they can rerun the report at 6 months' time. And they can see the journey that they've been on.
We'll just sort of round up our conversation with, a few sort of general, more sort of fun questions maybe, but maybe start with a heavier one.
Thank you.
Is there, you are an expert on teamwork, team effectiveness. You've dedicated your kind of working life to it. You've written books. You've spoken on many conference stages about it. Is there any myths about teamwork that you'd like to dispel?
Probably not a myth. An obsession that I'd like to dispel is don't just measure key performance indicators. Without measuring or understanding the driver of those, which is teamwork. In the 1950s, there was it's called the Project Triangle, or the Iron Triangle, or the Constraints Triangle, which organizations latched onto. And the triangle measures key performance indicators around quality of a product or service, time it takes us to deliver that product or service, and the cost.
Yeah.
How much does it cost us to get that service product to the marketplace? And there's been this obsession. But a lot of business haven't done is actually thought about, well, what is the driver of success or failure around those cost, quality, and time, which is teamwork.
Yeah.
You know, if your team, I paraphrased, teamwork makes the dream work, and I put on the end of it, only if your team are working like a dream. You know,
there you are.
and this is exactly the case. There's still too much obsession with just measuring KPIs and not the teamwork.
Yeah, that actually underpins
and
it. And
that's why I've dedicated my whole life to doing what I've done, ensuring that the learning and the tools are there for organisations to measure teamwork.
Yeah. And if there was one book on leadership which wasn't your own book that you'd recommend people read, what would it be?
Anything by John Cotter.
Okay.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah. Some of the oldies are the best.
Some of the oldies are the best. Yeah, I still go back to them time and time again. There's, Our Iceberg is Melting is a great fable about change and leadership and different personalities. Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions. But the thing is with that, a lot of people who've read this have said, you give us 16 solutions. Lencioni just talks about giving us 5 dysfunctions.
Problems.
Plus, it's a fable, whereas Team Lead Succeed is all based on real life scenarios and it's practical. So I think there's some new stuff that's coming online all the time.
I suppose, and there needs to be, doesn't it? Because the world is moving, technology is moving so fast. Hybrid working we've touched on. That does change some of the dynamics around teams, doesn't it? And I suppose you've got to keep up to date with it, haven't you? You've got to find the resources that work for you.
Yeah.
What's the one most common mistake that occurs that makes teams dysfunctional, Nick? No general question, I know, but it's the one thing you see more often than not when it's going wrong.
The one thing that comes up more than most is not having a clear understanding of what the team exists to do. Yeah. In the data and the stats I've got from all the teams I've worked with, comes out that 4 out of 10 team members don't know why the team exists. So you potentially, if you're in a room with your 9 colleagues, potentially, if you know why your team exists, there's 4 people there that potentially have got blank faces.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, if they don't know
why they're turning up every day,
they're going to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to be accountable.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start pointing the fingers and saying...
And I suppose we did talk earlier, didn't we, coming back around nearly full circles about that North Star. And I suppose you can understand why an organisation exists. Yeah. And somebody in a team might understand that, but then it needs to cascade down. And actually, our team of 5, why do we exist against that purpose is really important, isn't it?
Because once you understand why your team exists, then it gives you the motivation to understand why you exist and how you add value to what your team are trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could go back now with everything you've learned, you shared some of that knowledge with us in the short conversation this morning, Nick. If you could go back to that younger you, as you were given the team of 16 at Barclays, what would be your words of wisdom you'd give to yourself?
My words of wisdom would be, first of all, understand yourself. Yeah. What makes you tick and what drives you? What are your values? Also, what your behavioural style is like. Once you've understood yourself, then do some research to understand other people that are different to you.
Yeah.
Because quite often we see people as, if we don't understand it, we see people as difficult. No, they're not difficult. They're just different to us. Yeah. And equally, you know, we get frustrated when people do things not in the way that we do them. They may get a better result than us, so we should be fascinated that they do things differently. So understand yourself, understand others that are different to you, and then spend time focusing on teamwork, because that drives everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way that you're going to achieve your goals, your targets, your deliverables, is through how effective and efficient your teamwork is.
What a great way to end this conversation, Nick. If people want to learn more about you, what you do, want to get a copy of the book, where can they go?
I use LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
I'm Nick Fewings, Teamworkologist.
Okay.
And there's two Nick Fewingses, weirdly, on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I'm the one, Nick Fewings, Teamworkologist. Team Lead Succeed is on all recognised booksellers.
Okay.
So you know, if you typed in Team Lead Succeed, you would find it. People can come to me. I'm quite happy to post signed copies out to them.
Brilliant.
So there's various ways. My email is probably easy to find on social media in one way or another.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you for being a fascinating and so insightful guest.
Pleasure.
On the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. In my intro to this podcast, I did say that Nick was going to be the expert. And I think through his contributions, the things he shared, his insights, he definitely proved that he is an expert on teamwork and team effectiveness. There's so much as ever that I take away from these conversations that I have. For me, in that one was about that subject matter about being consistent and having consistency. And if I was more consistent, I'm sure we'd get a better output as a team at Evolve. So that's my takeaway. What was yours? Perhaps add it to the comments below. And if you've liked that conversation and that podcast, then please help us by liking and subscribing the Evolve to Succeed podcast. And of course, we'd like to engage with you. We'd like to have a cup of coffee and a chat with you about all of the things that we do at Evolve. And if you want to find out more, go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. But for now, thank you for listening.